Hello everyone, I would like to discuss with you how to detect warning signs of alcohol and drug abuse in the workplace. Let's go over this brief mandate. It says, according to the Code of Federal Regulations, Title 49, Subpart 382.603, each employer shall ensure that all persons designated to supervise drivers receive at least 60 minutes of training on alcohol misuse and receive at least an additional 60 minutes of training on controlled substance use. Training will be used by the supervisors to determine whether reasonable suspicion exists to require a driver to undergo testing under Subpart 382.307. The training shall include the physical, behavioral, speech, and performance indicators of probable alcohol misuse and use of controlled substances. The current training for supervisory personnel is not required. Following the presentation I'm going to show you, is going to go over those physical, behavioral, speech, and performance indicators that we can observe. Start off with alcohol. Some of the physical indicators of alcohol misuse in the workplace. It's the smell of alcohol on their breath, on their clothes, staggering, stumbling walk. It's lack of coordination, and depending on how much they've had to drink, dilated pupils. Some behavioral indicators, anger, confusion, depression. Some of the performance indicators that we can see, decreased performance and productivity. And it's because they're inefficient and prone to accidents and errors. Their mind's not focused on their task. One of the big things that you can kind of spot with your coworkers or with people who are working underneath you is if they have slurred speech. It's usually a very good indicator of at least something is not right. But it warrants further investigation. Marijuana, some of the physical indicators: distinct smell, reddened eyes, cough, fatigue, lack of motivation. Really kind of one of those lackadaisical things, like we can see in the behavioral indicators. They just kind of don't care, just kind of go with the flow, not really stressed or worried about anything, things maybe they should be concerned with. They have a distorted time perception. Their decision making's delayed. Some of their performance that you're going to see is decreased performance and productivity. They're also prone to accidents. A lot of it's because they don't have the drive. One speech indicator that we can see right off the bat is a slowed speech. Cocaine. Some of the physical indicators are running or irritated nose. If they're really not keeping up with themselves, you may even still see the powder on their nose. Dilated pupils, profuse sweating, and dry mouth. Now that's, if they're not working in a warm condition, if they're in an air-conditioned warehouse and somebody's sweating profusely, at a minimum, it warrants further questioning. Behavioral indicators: paranoid, frequent absences, and wide mood swings. Right, these absences could be totally from the whole day of work, or they take an extended lunch breaks, or wherever they're going to get the fix that they need. Overreaction to stimulus. Some of the performance indicators that we can see are significantly decreases job performance and increases absenteeism. Some of the things we already talked about, right? One of the speech patterns that you can kind of grab from them is talkativeness, right? If they're real chatty, especially, more than what they would normally be in a conversation. Amphetamines. Some of the physical indicators: dilated pupils, profuse sweating, possible high fever. It's another thing. If somebody obviously isn't sick and they're running high fever or their body's burning up and obviously they're not working outside in 90-degree heat, then maybe that situation doesn't warrant that, right? That's a tall factor that we can look at and say, hey, maybe something needs to be further investigated, right? Some behavior indicators: confusion, panic, restlessness. Gotta constantly be moving, got jitters, Performance indicators. So, in a low dose, short-term use, you may even see an improvement to an increase in energy and levels and alertness, right? That's going to be due to those things. Obviously, it's a false sense of being, right? It's very short-lived, and if it's long-term use, decreased performance and productivity, right? They're not going to be focused on their job. Amphetamines is another one where they're going to be real chatty, real talkative. Maybe that's part of some people's normal behavior. Obviously, some of the first things you see in a workplace, no matter where you're at, is whenever you see a deviation for what they normally act like, right? So if somebody usually doesn't say a whole lot, and one day they just won't stop talking, maybe it's something you need to look into. All right, let's go over PCP. Some of the physical indicators: dilated pupils, jerky eye movements, profuse sweating, warm to the touch. Again, this is one of those where the climate they're working in really matters. If it's somebody working in a closed shop that's air conditioned, they shouldn't be warm to the touch. They shouldn't be just sweating profusely, unless the situation warrants it, right? That's just some obvious things you can look at. Some of the behaviors: illusions of invincibility, impaired judgment, psychotic, severe confusion, and agitation. Obviously, some of their performance indicators are underperformance due to just missing work. Now, one of the things about PCPs, you typically won't see it in the workforce because when people are on PCP, they're just pretty much non-functional. There's no way that they could be doing their job and on it at the same time. It would be pretty obvious. Speech indicators could range from repetitive speech to, if they've taken enough, they just won't even be communicating at all. Opioids. So some of the physical indicators are constricted pupils, sweating, drowsiness, fatigue, slowed reflexes. Behavioral indicators: mood swings, impaired coordination, depression. Some of the performance indicators is going to be significantly decreases job performance due to mental and physical side effects, right? They could be lethargic. It just really depends on what they're taking. But one of the things that you can really look at it too when somebody's on opioids is the slurred speech, especially if they've taken a lot. Some people are repetitive users. That may just be how they normally see. But as with anything, if somebody acts a certain way all the time and that's their normal state, and you see a deviation from that normal state, it always warrants more questions. And it doesn't have to be full-fledged jump into it and accuse them of anything, right? This is all indicators to look into to say, hey, maybe we just need to do a little more investigating to make sure everybody's safe. So in summary, these are some of the key indicators that may warrant further investigation and monitoring. Obviously, excessive absences and tardiness, repeated late requests for time off during the work week, accidents without explanation, poor work performance, frequent breaks or trips to the parking lot, dilated pupils, profuse sweating. Obviously, like we said before, it's really dependent on the work climate. Abnormal speech patterns and random mood swings, right? These are all very big indicators that, hey, we need to look into this a little bit further. Here's just a brief overview of the references we used, and just thank you for watching the presentation. Hopefully you learned something from it. Hope you have a good day.